Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you truly love music, you're going to want to subscribe below so you don't miss an episode. We're now a daily channel and we have some amazing things coming your way. Now, in the past, I've done a few videos where I've discussed 5 seemingly passed over songs from the 80s that should be in more regular rotation in our daily lives. As I've said before, it seems like every time that pop culture uses music from the 80s to represent the decade or conjure up an emotion cinematically, it's like they use the same 30 or 40 songs. And even on radio stations, we hear a lot of the same songs on repeat. You know, the top 200 songs of the 80s. And we all love these songs, but they can be overplayed sometimes, and there's so much more to celebrate. So here are 5 more songs for you. Now, past 2 volumes I've done, some people have commented and they've said, these are songs I've heard before. They were hits, or, sometimes I still hear them. Again, my criteria here has always been that the songs I cover, for the most part, were hits in their day, but are a lot of times at the back of the bus decades later, and I don't understand that. That's why we celebrate them. They haven't been used in pop culture much, if at all, and they haven't received the radio play they so richly deserve, so it's time to change that. Now, I've included them, as I normally do, in a playlist below so you can listen to them, see if you agree. So make sure to click below, leave a comment on your feelings, we'll talk about it. So let's get into it. Number 5, Affair of the Heart by Rick Springfield. Rick Springfield was a few years beyond his massive #1 smash, an 80s standard, Jesse's Girl, when he released this song. And it features that classic 80s guitar and synth dynamic duo that helped carry it up the charts. Affair of the Heart was the lead single off of Springfield's platinum album, Living in Oz. Now, the song went to #9 in 1983. It was actually nominated for a Grammy for Best Male Rock Vocal Performance in the year that everybody in music got run over by that freight train called Michael Jackson Thriller. Yeah, Rick lost to Beat It. And now there's a very funny story about how this song came to be. When I interviewed Rick several years ago, he shared it.
Affair of the Heart was really, it's really funny. This guy, we went to see the premiere of Live and Kicking, which is the first live show I did. I'm taking a whiz, right, in the public bathroom. This guy walks up, starts taking a whiz with me, and starts looking at me, right? I'm going, oh, dude, seriously? And mid-pee, hands me a tape, cassette tape, back when the cassette tape. He said, you got to hear this song. I wrote this song. You'll love it. I'm kind of going, whoa. How do I take this? So I took the cassette, right, and I got in my car and I threw it on the floor. And a couple of months later, I'm driving it to General Hospital. And I'm looking for something to play, and I see this tape, and I pick it up, and I put it in, and I hear boom, 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 boom. And I thought, what is that? That's awesome. And then it went into this song about Superman, and I go, oh, no. It's not awesome, but it's a great start. And so I took that intro and wrote a song around it while I was at General Hospital, actually. I remember sitting there with the keyboard and they're going, Rick Springfield, you come on set. I'm going, wait, I gotta finish this. So wrote a song around that, which I think is still it's a great classic synth intro. It's still a fun song to do.
This song, along with many others, prove Rick's underappreciated prowess as a guitarist and a songwriter and a vocalist. His recent output is well worth a listen. Number 4, The Captain of Her Heart by Doublé. This perfectly graceful slice of dream pop sat like right at the midpoint of haunting and peaceful, depending on your mood or your nature. I always felt that it was really eerie, yet completely satisfying, and a transfixing melody that whenever it came on the radio, it always hypnotized me into this harmonious trance. Written by the Swiss duo known as Doublé, comprised of lead singer-guitarist Kurt Malou and drummer-keyboardist Felix Hogue, who both wrote The Captain of Her Heart. Now, The song went to number 16 on the Hot 100 here in the US and number 8 in the UK. They were the first Swiss duo to have a top 40 hit in America. The ballad seems to be about a girl who stops waiting for her missing lover to come back. The beauty of the song is really in its simplicity. Kurt Maloo's smooth, sophistopop croon with a breezy sax that supports it all. The captain of a heart. And most importantly, one of the best one-handed piano parts in all of the 80s. For me, it was The Captain of Her Heart, I Just Can't Get Enough by Depeche Mode, and Be Near Me by ABC that had those one-handed parts, those piano parts that all of us 80s kids were trying to plink out for ourselves. That's why I took piano lessons. This is a song to add to your collection ASAP. I mean, Kurt Maloo recorded another version of this song with an even more jazzy feel some years later that we're going to add below so you can see it and hear it. I'm just continually stunned that someone hasn't used this wonderfully cinematic song in a series or a film. Need to do that. Number 3, Feel It Again by Honeymoon Suite. Wow, there were some great artists that came out of Canada that had really great output in the 80s. I mean, Bryan Adams, Rush, Loverboy, Corey Hart, Triumph, Glass Tiger, and this band that formed in 1981. Honeymoon Suite would switch members before getting a record deal in 1983 with singer-guitarist Johnny D as the consistent and core member up to that point. Now, around that time, songwriter-guitarist Gary Grahan and songwriter-keyboardist Ray Coburn joined, and their self-titled debut came out in 1984. It went platinum in Canada, and it had a top 40 hit there as well. Then the band hooked up with legendary producer Bruce Fairbairn, he just produced 2 albums for fellow Canadian rockers Loverboy, including the 4 times platinum album Get Lucky, one with that great cover where he's crossing his fingers. Now, Bruce would go on to produce Aerosmith's Permanent Vacation and Pump, and he'd also do Bon Jovi's Blockbusters, Slippery When Wet, New Jersey, AC/DC as well. There's so many others. But together, Bruce Fairbairn and the guys in Honeymoon Suite created a stellar sophomore album called The Big Prize. The first single from the record, Feel It Again, became their lone top 40 hit in America. It peaked at number 34. Although there was another great single from the album, What It Takes. It hit number 52 and it was featured prominently in the John Cusack 80s classic One Crazy Summer. Although to me, the song sounded like it really would have fit on a montage in Rocky IV. Anyway, I digress. But bottom line, the song Feel It Again is much bigger than its chart position. I mean, I am still shocked that it didn't at least go top 10 here in America. It's an AOR magnetic rocker, tailor-made for the 80s with its larger-than-life guitars perfectly interlaced with some potent keyboards and a full-throttle vocal by Johnny D that puts listeners in a chokehold. Honeymoon Suite, remember that band?
Oh, absolutely. They're one of my favorite bands.
Yeah,
they should have been huge in this game.
I know. I was saying the same thing. I was doing this piece on hidden gems from the 80s, and I talked about Feel It Again. That's a great song.
Oh, man. I know. I was just humming it in my head, and just before you said that, is that ever weird?
The song was written by Ray Coburn, so the verses raise you ever so subtly to a grandiose chorus that's chock full of bulldozing power chords and anthemic shouts that beg for a sing-along and a raised fist, especially the background line. The guitar solo takes no prisoners here. It's truly a seismic rocker that deserves repeated listens. Again, click on our curated playlist below and you're going to hear this and all the rest of the songs. Honeymoon Suite recently released a new single. It's called Tell Me What You Want. It's up on YouTube. Number 2, Lay Your Hands on Me by the Thompson Twins. I'll tell you right now, this is a perfect pop song. It is synth pop majesty. First single released from the Thompsons' album, Here's to Future Days, written by the three members, Tom Bailey, Alana Curry, and Joe Leeway. Now, there are several versions of this song. It was first put out in the UK a little less than a year before the album was dropped. So the first version was produced by Alex Sadkin and lead singer Bailey in '84. Then legendary producer Nile Rodgers stepped in, reformatted it with some ferocious electric guitars and this sensational gospel choir that made the chorus absolutely swell. Here's what Tom Bailey said about it in an interview that we did.
There's something kind of, I think we're borrowing from the gospel tradition there, but it took Nile and the circumstances of recording in New York to make that kind of real for us. The first version we recorded in Paris, and there wasn't a gospel choir in Paris, whereas there were several in New York. And so that's what happened. And of course, it was a staggeringly fruitful privilege to work with Nile.
Yeah, he just had a big hit with Daft Punk and still going strong.
He's at the top of his game again. Sometimes you start with a lyrical idea and look for the rhythmic or melodic potential in a phrase or a chorus or something. Quite often it's the other way. We have some kind of groove that we find really infectious, and an infectious groove often leads to a melody, and you think, oh, what words could possibly illustrate the feeling we're getting from that? But I think all songwriters are desperate people. Any gem that we find lying in the sand, we pick it up and go with it, because they're rare.
The Thompson Twins are, of course, known for their 80s standard, Hold Me Now, which has been used in too many films and TV shows to name here. There's also the song If You Were Here, that is just the major part of the John Hughes classic 16 Candles. What a great scene. However, this song really should be used a lot more in our culture. Its raging chorus is as powerful as an 80s pop song could ever hope to be. Tom Bailey just erupts with his vocals in that chorus. It kickstarts the heart. It ignites the senses every time with this brilliant song. Now, it did go to number 6 on the charts here in America, so it was a big success, which is why it should be played more, celebrated more often. Number 1, Talk It Over by Grayson Hugh. Man, this song seemed to come out of nowhere in 1988. Now, Grayson Hughes started playing piano at age 3. He was brought up on classical music until his early teens when rock and soul took over. He played piano in a black gospel choir for about a year, then he studied under several great musicians. Then he dropped out of high school to focus on music 100%. He released an album in 1980, but it really didn't take. In 1986, Hugh moved to New York, where, as fate would have it, he bumped into producer Michael Baker in an elevator. Now, Baker was producing the Blow Monkeys at that time, and just like that, he was hired to sing background vocals on the Blow Monkeys' current record. And in no time, he actually signed a record deal with RCA. His debut for them included a song that was called Talk It Over. It was written by veteran songwriter Sandy Linzer, who wrote some hits for the Four Seasons, including Working My Way Back to You. Great song. And also Irwin Levine, who had written hits for Tony Orlando and Dawn. So Hugh arranged the song, and then he recorded it. Although Olivia Newton-John was granted the right to release her own version first, she also recorded it. Olivia's version was called Can't We Talk It Over in Bed? It stalled as a single, so Grayson released his version, and it began its climb to the charts. It peaked at number 19 on the Hot 100 and number 9 on the AC charts. Okay, here we go. This song just blazes with soul. I mean, it's absurdly phenomenal. It outtowns Motown and then some. Seriously, how this song wasn't a number 1 hit is close to the 8th wonder of the world. The music video is especially fantastic. I mean, a woman packs her suitcases ready to walk out of Grayson's life when all of a sudden 2 dudes who look and sound pretty much like members of the Temptations start climbing out of the suitcases, singing the first few lines of the song with so much soul you can't even take it. Then a beret-wearing Grayson Hugh pops out of another suitcase just in time to respond to the last line, and love walks out that door. Throughout the song, Grayson and his backup soul singers call and respond to each other. And many times, like, Grayson just repeats the lines that they sing, almost like he's, kind of hanging out in the background or in the shadows. And yet he doesn't, because even when he's repeating these lines, they're already sung, they just knock you sideways silly as a listener. I mean, Grayson Hugh dunks this song from the 3-point line. Let's be clear. I don't know what he did the day he recorded this song, but for exactly 4 minutes and 10 seconds, he's like a superhuman Jackie Wilson.
Oh, now, baby.
Just quiet storming the hell right out of this song with a vocal that I'm sure even Smokey Robinson was shaking his head in disbelief.
I must have been out of my head.
I mean, seriously, this song is a must listen. It should be a crown jewel of anyone's daily playlist. Also, you got to check out the video. It's pretty freaking cool. So there you have it. My 5 picks for the hidden gems of the great decade that we call the 80s. So do me a favor. Go listen to these songs in the playlist below with an open mind. Drop us a line after that. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings on these songs? What are your hidden gems? What else should we feature on future installments? We may even do some from the 70s and 90s. You'll have to let us know. Also, if you like the content, please subscribe below. Click the bell so you never miss an episode. Help us out on Patreon if you're able. Help us keep the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.